Today is February 13th, 2021, and it has actually been exactly a month since the House of Representatives voted to impeach President Donald Trump. At the time when he got impeached, he was president. Now, obviously, he's former President Trump because Joe Biden is now the President of the United States. But it has been exactly a month since the House of Representatives voted to impeach President Trump. Now, the reason why the House voted to impeach Trump was because the Democrats in the House alleged that Donald Trump was responsible for the Capitol Hill riots that took place on January 6, 2021. The Capitol riots were riots that took place on January 6th, which was the day that the Electoral College results of the 2020 presidential election were certified by Congress. Now, the reason why these riots took place was because many diehard Trump supporters, people on the far right, people that thought that Donald Trump should have won the election, that he was the rightful winner of the election. They didn't want the Electoral College results to be certified because Joe Biden had won the election, but they didn't want Joe Biden to win. So some of these diehard far right Trump supporters ended up rioting at Capitol Hill on January 6, 2021, the day that the Electoral College results got certified by Congress. So originally the results were supposed to be certified earlier in the day, but because of the riots, the result certification had to be moved on to late at night. So the evening of January 6th, and it even went into the morning of January 7th, in fact, because it went past midnight. But because of the role that Democrats allege that Trump played in fueling these riots, in inciting these riots that took place on January 6th, Democrats allege that Donald Trump played a role in these riots taking place a week later on January 13th, 2021. Every Democrat in the House and a few Republicans in the House as well voted to impeach President Trump. So, because Donald Trump had more than half the members in the House voted to impeach him, it then went to the Senate. So, the House of Representatives is controlled by Democrats. At the time, it was controlled by Democrats, obviously. So, that is why Donald Trump was able to get impeached by the House, since the party that controlled the majority, every one of those members voted to impeach Trump, as well as a few Republicans, but almost everybody that voted to impeach Trump was a Democrat, and everybody who voted to not impeach Trump was a Republican. So it mostly went along partisan lines. So the reason why I'm bringing up all this now is because exactly a month later, a month after the House of Representatives decided to impeach President Trump, the Senate finally took their vote on whether or not to convict Donald Trump of wrongdoing. That took place just earlier today. The vote for that took place just earlier today. Now, this happened after several days of Senate trials. So, the trials for impeachment, for the impeachment process in the Senate, began last Tuesday on February 9th, 2021. So, that was 4 days ago. So, February 9th was the first day of these impeachment trials, which means that today was the fifth day of these impeachment trials. And today is the day that the Senate finally decided to take a vote on whether or not Trump should be convicted of wrongdoing. Unlike the House of Representatives, where only one half of the members of the House have to vote affirmative in order for the president to be impeached, in the Senate, two-thirds of the voting members have to vote to convict the president, or in this instance, the former president, in order for the conviction to actually take place, in order for Trump to actually be convicted for wrongdoing. I don't think any of us are surprised, or at least you shouldn't be surprised to find out that the Senate voted to not convict President Trump of wrongdoing, or former President Trump of wrongdoing, earlier today. I've talked about this before, but I was basically over 99% sure from the get go that impeachment would fail in the Senate. I knew that it would pass in the House because the House is owned by Democrats, and you only need 50% of the members to vote on the affirmative in order for the president to be impeached. But because you need two-thirds of the senators to vote on the affirmative in order for the conviction to actually go through, and because only 50 senators are Democrats, I knew that there was no way that the Democrats would get 17 senators to cross party lines and vote on the affirmative for conviction, because in the Senate there are 100 members, two-thirds of 100, if you round up, is 67, so at least 67 members needed to vote on the affirmative in order for former President Trump to actually get convicted. Now, the Democrats actually came closer to convicting President Trump than what I predicted. In my prediction video, I said that assuming that Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff would both officially become senators before the impeachment vote in the Senate takes place, I predicted that 56 senators in total would vote to convict Donald Trump. This would include all 50 of the Democratic senators, plus 6 Republican senators. So this was my prediction. Since John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are both already senators, I predicted that every Democrat, all 50 Democrats, and then 6 Republican senators would vote to convict Donald Trump in this instance. But I actually underestimated the number of Republicans that would vote to convict Trump by 1. I predicted that 56 senators would vote to convict Trump because 50 Democrats plus 6 Republicans is 56 senators in total, but I actually underestimated the number of Republicans that would vote to convict former President Donald Trump by 1. So I predicted 6 Republicans would vote to convict Trump, but in reality, it was 7 Republican senators that voted to convict Trump. So I'm not gonna list the name of every Democrat that voted to convict Trump because there's too many of those, but because there are only 7 Republicans that voted to convict Trump, I'll list the names of those 7 senators right now. So these included Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. So these 3 names that I just listed, these are the names of 3 of the most moderate Republican senators serving in the Senate. These 3 senators are Republicans, but they do side with Democrats on many things, and I guess that the impeachment vote is one of the things that they ended up siding with Democrats on. These are 3 senators that I actually predicted would vote to convict Trump, and I was correct on that. But the 4 other Republican senators that I did not predict would impeach or would vote to convict Trump include Richard Burr, Bill Cassidy, Ben Sasse, and Patrick Toomey. So those are the 4 other Republicans that also sided with the Democrats in voting to convict former President Donald Trump of wrongdoing. So in total, that's 57 senators voting to convict Trump. Now, that's more than most of us predicted would vote to convict Trump. I'm pretty sure most of us expected there to be barely more than 50 senators that would vote to convict Trump, but in fact, there were 57 senators that voted on the affirmative for conviction, but that's still significantly less than the 67 needed to actually have the conviction go through and actually have Donald Trump lose out on the privileges that being a former president affords you. But I knew from the start, and I'm pretty sure that most of you guys knew from the start, that the Senate would not vote to convict President Trump. There just weren't enough Republican senators that were willing to cross party lines in order to convict the former president. I was surprised that even 7 senators voted to convict Trump. 7 senators crossed party lines in the Senate impeachment vote. You may remember that in an earlier video I talked about how 45 Republican senators thought that the Senate impeachment trials shouldn't even take place. I talked about in an earlier video how 45 Republican senators thought that the Senate impeachment trial shouldn't even happen because of the fact that President Trump was already out of office. He was already former President Trump since Joe Biden had already been inaugurated. So I thought that because of that, at most there would be 55 senators in total that would vote to convict Trump, every Democrat plus 5 Republicans, but I actually underestimated because in total there were 57 senators voting on conviction. But I knew right then and there, and even before that, I knew that there was no way 17 Republicans would cross party lines. Even the fact that 7 Republican senators cross party lines in and of itself is pretty surprising and is more than what I expected. Now that the Senate vote has taken place on Trump's second impeachment, I think that this is the last video I'm going to make, not only on this topic, but hopefully it's going to be the last video that I have to make regarding current news. Former President Donald Trump. He is not president anymore. Joe Biden is now the president of the United States. Donald Trump's impeachment already happened. The Senate voted to not convict him. I'm really hoping that we can just move on beyond Donald Trump now that he's not president. Since Joe Biden's now the president, I hope that we can start talking about him more. I really hope that the major news networks stop talking about Donald Trump since he's not the president anymore. What he does doesn't really matter at this point. I think now we just need to focus on what Joe Biden does, what the Senate does, what the House does. I don't think there's any point on focusing what Trump does with his time at this point. He's no longer president. What Trump does on his own time doesn't really matter. So I'm really hoping we can forget about Donald Trump and that he doesn't come up in the current news anymore. And that I don't have to talk about anything that he does on this channel anymore. He's not president anymore. I'm really hoping that this is the last video I will ever make in current news where I talk about something that relates to President Trump. I hope that whenever I talk about President Trump on his channel, it's from a historical perspective. It's from a perspective of looking back on what happened, looking back on history, looking back on the past, and seeing what all happened, especially in like the year 2020, but also just from the point that he first declared his candidacy as president to the point where he got impeached a second time by the Senate. So that would be from June 2015, I don't remember the exact date he first announced his candidacy for president, June 2015 to February 13th, 2021. I'm hoping that I will no longer have to talk about Donald Trump from a point in time beyond February 13th, 2021.